The water didn't rise. It detonated. On the night of August 8, 1975, a wall of water 40 feet high tore across central China at the speed of a passenger jet. It swallowed entire villages in under 7 minutes. Children were ripped from their mothers' arms mid-scream. Soldiers standing guard on the dam itself vanished without a trace. Their bodies never recovered. By the time the sun rose, an area the size of a small country had been erased from the map, and the government told its own people nothing had happened. For more than 20 years, this catastrophe officially did not exist. Not in newspapers, not in textbooks, not in a single record the outside world was allowed to see. The true death toll, one of the deadliest disasters of the 20th century, was buried deeper than the bodies themselves. Engineers had warned this would happen. They were ignored, and some were punished for saying it out loud. What you are about to learn was hidden by one of the most powerful governments on Earth for an entire generation, and the reason it finally surfaced will unsettle you more than the flood itself. Because this was never just a natural disaster. This was a choice, made in a quiet room, far from the water, by people who never had to face what came next. Picture central China in 1951, a nation rebuilding itself, desperate to control the rivers that had drowned its people for centuries. In Henan province, engineers began raising a structure meant to end the flooding forever. The Banqiao Dam, built with Soviet blueprints and reinforced with steel, it was nicknamed the Iron Dam. Officials called it indestructible. Local newspapers praised it as proof that nature itself could be conquered. But one man disagreed. Chief Engineer Chen Xing studied the plans and saw something no one wanted to hear. The spillways were too small. The dam could not release water fast enough in a true catastrophe. He pushed for more outlets. He was overruled. Politics moved faster than physics. This was the era of the Great Leap Forward, when questioning state projects could end a career or a life. Chen's warnings were dismissed as unpatriotic doubt. Construction finished. The Iron Dam stood proud over the valley, and beneath it, hundreds of thousands of people built homes, farms, and futures, trusting a wall of concrete that had never truly been tested. Cracks appeared within years. They were patched in secret. Reports of the damage never reached the public, and repairs were made quietly, without warning the villages below. Nobody imagined what was coming in the summer of 1975, when a typhoon stalled directly over the province, and the sky simply refused to stop falling. What happened next was not measured in inches of rainfall. It was measured in bodies and in a silence that would last for decades, carefully enforced by people who understood exactly what the Iron Dam had failed to hold back, and what that silence would ultimately cost. Typhoon Nina made landfall and then stalled directly over the mountains above the dam, trapped by a wall of cold air with nowhere to go. In 24 hours, the region received more than a year's worth of rain. Reservoirs meant to hold back rivers were suddenly asked to hold back oceans. Upstream, smaller dams began failing first, one after another, each collapse sending a wave down to the next. A chain reaction engineers had never modeled and never imagined. When the water finally reached Banqiao, the Iron Dam had nowhere left to send it. The undersized spillways Chen Xing had warned about years earlier choked under the pressure. Water rose over the crest of the dam itself, and then the unthinkable happened. The dam did not slowly overflow. It exploded outward, unleashing an estimated 600 million cubic meters of water in a single catastrophic release. Survivors described a sound like artillery fire, followed by a wall of water and debris, moving faster than anyone could run. Entire towns were gone within minutes. Telegraph lines, meant to warn downstream communities, had been cut by the storm hours earlier, and the warning that should have saved thousands never arrived. People woke up already drowning. Estimates of the dead ranged from 26,000 in the flood itself to as many as 240,000 when disease, starvation, and the collapse of infrastructure in the weeks afterward were counted. For decades, the Chinese government listed the death toll at a fraction of that number, and international observers were denied access to the region entirely. The disaster remained one of the best-kept secrets of the 20th century, until satellite images, leaked documents, and survivor testimony finally forced the truth into the light. Nearly 20 years later, long after the mass graves had settled into quiet farmland, and an entire generation had grown up, never knowing what lay buried beneath their feet. In the immediate aftermath, survivors were relocated, told to rebuild, and told to stay silent. The government classified the disaster as a state secret. Discussing the true death toll in public could bring interrogation, imprisonment, or worse. Chen Xing, the engineer who had warned about the flawed spillways years before, was never publicly vindicated in his lifetime. He died still labeled a troublemaker by the very system his warnings could have saved. No senior official responsible for the dams, as design or the political pressure behind it, faced meaningful punishment. The people who paid the price were the ones who had no power to begin with. Farmers, laborers, children, while the decisions that killed them were made in offices hundreds of miles away. It wasn't until the 1990s, as satellite technology and international engineering journals began cross-referencing regional data, that the outside world pieced together the true scale of what had happened. Dam safety experts now study Banqiao as one of the starkest warnings in modern engineering book history, proof that infrastructure failures are rarely just about concrete and steel. They are about who gets listened to and who gets silenced. Today, thousands of aging dams across the world sit above populated valleys, built under political pressure, inspected under political pressure, and maintained under budgets shaped by the same forces that buried this story for 20 years. Every time a government downplays a warning to protect its image, this is the ending they are gambling with. The Iron Dam did not just fail because of a typhoon. It failed because someone decided silence was safer than the truth. And that choice, made in a single meeting room decades ago, still echoes in every valley where a warning goes unheard today, waiting quietly for its own storm to arrive. History does not just forget disasters, it is sometimes forced to. The Banqiao Dam teaches us something far darker than the story of a flood. It teaches us that power will bury truth if truth threatens its image, and that the loudest warnings often come from the people least likely to be believed. Somewhere right now, an engineer, a scientist, or a witness is saying something inconvenient and being told to stay quiet. The water always finds a way through. The only question is whether we listen before the dam breaks, or after. What forgotten disaster do you think deserves to be remembered? Tell me in the comments. And if stories like this deserve to survive, make sure you're subscribed when the next one surfaces from the dark. Because the truth, it turns out, is patient. It waits in leaked documents, in old survivor testimonies, in cracked concrete nobody thought to question, and eventually, no matter how many decades pass, it finds its way back to the surface. The only thing history asks of us is that when it does, we actually choose to look instead of turning away.